Hello, guys, and a happy new year! 2020 is done with, but all the things that stuck around with it are still here. Sadly, they don't all disappear. If only they would. Mainly the Tories. Let's get political. Thank you very much for joining me. This is episode 15 of Kit Room. They're not stopping. Certainly not stopping. Not while I'm still unemployed, but less of that. So let's throw it over to the guest. Mr. Guest, who are you and what do you do in the space of football?
Yeah, hello there. Yeah, yes, I'm Gavin Haigh. I'm a massive Newcastle United fan. Newcastle United fan many years, 44 years to be precise. I'm also a collector of Newcastle United football shirts and have been for many years too. And also, no doubt when we're going to it later on the podcast, I'm also a collector of a few other teams as well. So, yeah, that's me.
You get yourself around, really.
Yeah.
So, is that this season's shirt or is that last season's? I'm trying to figure out which one you're wearing.
This is this season's shirt, Ollie. This is the third shirt, and I must admit, over the years, I haven't really been much of a lover of Puma shirts, which we've got in Newcastle. I mean, this is the last season, thankfully, before we move on to another kit manufacturer. But I have to say, this third shirt, in my opinion, is the best one we've had. So, yes, I thought I would show it off tonight.
Are they changing supplier?
Yes. We're hearing, you're hearing rumours. You're hearing rumours. It's Castor. But again, until I see it in black and white, as they would say, I'm not sure who it is. I've got my hopes it would be certain suppliers, but it was supposed to end a year ago, but they've done a year's extension.
Right.
So, you know.
See it in black and white, both literally and metaphorically. I'm
Yes.
wearing I think this was 2002 Spain home shirt with the Messiah on the back. It is mirrored, so it won't really. But yeah, I had to get Pep on the back, of course.
Great player.
Well, I don't really remember much of a player. Although I did hear that City did actually try and sign him before he went to Mexico. So that would have been pretty cool. But oh well. So let's jump into your early life and your ties to football before we find out more about your kits and your groundhopping, which was a little teaser, which I don't think you mentioned. So I'm guessing you, going by your accent and who you support, I'm guessing you grew up in Newcastle. Really seems like only a one sport town, really. What was your introduction to football?
Well, my introduction is to say I was actually born in Gateshead. Gateshead, as far as I'm concerned, is as close as you possibly get. Where I was born in Gateshead, I don't know if you've ever been in Newcastle, Ollie, over the years. You know, it's basically the river between it. You could say where I was born, the hospital in Gateshead. If they just push you down the bank, you go straight to the Tyne, and you could see the stadium, or the ground as we called it back and then, from where I was born. I was born into it very much. Newcastle were part of me dad, granddad's life, always have been. They went in the 50s, 60s, 70s. So growing up at school, it wasn't a case of, well, let's pick a team who we support. It's automatically Newcastle. So as you say, as I mentioned, my dad, my granddad, my uncles all followed Newcastle as well. So I think it was just, when you were old enough, it was, can I have the kit? Can I have the strip? And then from that, it was when you were old enough to go to the games. So when I was old enough, in their eyes, it was when I was 7-year-old, I started going to the games. And needless to say, I've never stopped going since.
So I grew up in the Northwest, so it was City, mainly United and Liverpool while growing up. City broke in later on, should we say. But and then there were occasionally one or two like Arsenal, Chelsea and Spurs fans, really not too sure what they were doing in the Northwest. But with being up in your end of the woods, I'm guessing it was really only Newcastle, Sunderland and potentially even Middlesbrough support.
Yeah. As I say, where I lived in Gateshead, because it was right next to Newcastle, I didn't know anyone who supported anybody else. It was just, I think you heard occasionally Liverpool, because it was when Liverpool won the title in '76 when Keegan was played. So there was obviously some of the stars then. It was only a few years later when I moved south to Durham, when my mum got married, and then we went to a school in Durham where it was very much half and half. So it was then you were exposed to Sunderland and then you realise because Durham very much is Sunderland stroke Newcastle, with a sprinting of Middlesbrough. So it was only when I kind of got to the comprehensive school they would say you start seeing that there's a team down the road in Cleveland, as we would say, they're called Middlesbrough. So it was only then you branched out. The nearest I got at the beginning was there was a Liverpool and a Man United, but I think that was probably because they were the best. But because I was from an area that was heavily all kind of Newcastle, you never really heard the Glory Hunters come out.
So moving to that other school, is that when all the fights started?
No, not at all. I was a model person at school.
So did you play much for team at school, anything like that?
I would say, did I play? I tried to, school teams and things like that. But I wouldn't. I said I was okay, but I was probably more from watching Newcastle from day one. It was more about watching the match and play. I played it right through school, and I played outside the front door. And there was no such thing like computers, as they would say back in those days. So as you say, when I say played, I played it at school in a fashion, but I certainly played it out of school with my friends on a night time. So yeah. So in answer to your question, yes, I did play.
So do you remember your first game?
Like that? Oh yes, I certainly do. My first game, I just celebrated an anniversary of it a couple of months ago. It was the 23rd of October, 1976. So that's 44 years ago. It seems a lifetime ago. What seems like it's only yesterday. It was a home game against Birmingham City that we won 3-2. And if memory serves me well, the likes of Trevor Francis was playing. He was playing for Birmingham, who was at Manchester City for a while. Trevor Francis was, and yeah, we won 3-2. Started off very, very well. Ironically, round about that time, Newcastle were roughly second in the league of Division 1, which was like the equivalent of being second in the Premier League. So, yeah, at the beginning we were very... And then, as I say, from that moment, I went to the first game and I've never stopped ever since. So I got kind of hooked from day one.
Yeah, I didn't actually know that, but it's quite funny because about 5 minutes that way walking or a 30-second drive is St Andrews. So
right,
it was at Newcastle, but that's still quite funny. So you said you started it started then and not stopped since. Through that has been groundhopping as well. Yeah. How did you get into groundhopping? What was your introduction to that?
How have I gotten into groundhopping? I've got some facts for you that's actually quite useful. I always found this because I have this app on my phone. It's called Footpology, and it was originally a groundhopping app. So if you think over the years, you go, how can you make a note of all these games you've gone to, and end up there was this app where you could record every game you've gone to. So I've just over the last few years managed to keep up to date with that. But how it kind of all started, because I've always gone to watch Newcastle. I used to watch England a lot, but because of being a massive football fan in general, hence the football kits as well, whenever I went on holiday or whenever I went on a trip somewhere, it was always, can I try to get to a football match? And that started in the early 80s. So you go from your holidays with your mum, your holidays with your friends, which then becomes city breaks with your friends, which then becomes stag do with your friends, which then become other trips. So it then become always going to match. And then further in life, when I got married with my wife started going to the games with us. So it turned into, it's always been ground hopping kind of in my eyes, but that it kind of just become the norm. So if I think we went to Rome to get engaged in 2016. Well, we had to go and see Lazio Napoli play, so we did. I go back to stag do's in 1998 with my friend. We tied that in with the World Cup, so we went to 6 games. So it's always been there, but it was always, in my mind, it wasn't ground hopping. It was always going to matches all over. But now it's become the norm and quite really, really important. But obviously, in reality, I've kind of always done it. So I can probably go back to games in 1990, 1991, when we would always go away somewhere and go to game. Got friends of mine where we went on holiday to Spain about 10 years ago, and we were going to Torremolinos. When I realised Malaga were at home, I managed to force them all to go to Malaga to watch this game when they played Levante. So you just said the sort of ground hopping, it's something I've always done, but we always turned it into, it was a trip away with the lads and we turned it into a football match. But when you hear everyone talk about it now, it very much is that, isn't it? It's very much the going away for a trip. 90 minutes is the football, but then they're on the beer for the weekend, aren't they? Or they're seeing all the various cities. So it's kind of been incorporated. The best way to probably sum it up to start with was going to watch Newcastle away from home. But then Newcastle were in Europe at certain times, but they weren't always in Europe. Many times we were in the second division. So it's kind of, well, how else can I go and watch games abroad? And England was a thing. We used to follow England a lot around the world. But then the next best thing is kind of going to other cities to watch matches. Hence why I mentioned Rome. I've recently, ironically, the last game I saw before lockdown was not a Newcastle United game. It was Hertha Berlin against Werder Bremen at the beginning of March. So that was the last game I went to see. And I tried to tie in the whole weekend where we would go and watch some lower league football in Berlin on a Sunday. But sadly, they were all kind of postponed of this potential lockdown that might have happened, which obviously did. So yes, ground hopping's always been kind of part of it. But as you say, now we managed to kind of tie it into to everything. So as you say, and what we tend to do now when me and my wife go abroad or on breaks, we always tie the football games in as well. So it's ground hopping in its purest, but it's also the wife enjoys it because she sees a nice city. I enjoy it because I go to the games. But it just say it's kind of a nice way of a bloke, as they would say, tying it into a normal trip abroad, isn't it? So
yeah,
very interesting.
Or planning your holiday specifically to go to a game. But so I'm sure everyone is going to remember what their last game was pre-lockdown. Mine was the Carabao Cup final against Villa. At least City won. At least I got to see us lift a trophy beforehand. So you mentioned there that your wife goes along with you. Was she into football at first, or have you got her into that as well? Because my partner is she's been a City fan longer than I have. She's had a season ticket pretty much since she was able to get one. So there wasn't any, I don't want to say indoctrination, but there wasn't any persuasion needed in this household to get to any games.
I would say because I've always been into football, and as I mentioned, that my dad was, my whole family was, everyone's always known I've been into it. So I've been into it since I was 7 years old. So it's kind of, that's how it is, if you know what I mean. So of course, as I say, when I met my wife in 2013, obviously she was then aware that I was this massive Newcastle fan and kind of always had been and always liked to watch other games. So part of that is I'd like to go to Germany to watch the games. So she quickly embraced it. But when I say embraced it, was she was always interested, as in was aware of Newcastle United because her father was a massive Newcastle fan. So it's another case of, I think when your parents are involved in it or go to games, you don't kind of have that choice. So as you say, she kind of embraced it, but turned it into the trips abroad. You know what I mean? Even kind of when we went to Thailand 5 years ago, you know, I was pulling around Bangkok to try and find a couple of Thai football shirts. Needless to say, I did manage to get them, you know, but she was quite, so as I say, it's fair to say that she completely embraced it from day one. But not so much going to the Newcastle games, but more about going abroad. As I mentioned, we went to Oslo in 2016 for a 4-day break. I'd always fancied going there. And while we were there, we went to see Germany against Norway. So again, I think it was just, if you think about from a lass's point of view, it's kind of, well, I can live with watching 90 minutes of football. I'm having a 4-day break in Oslo, aren't I? So it's kind of, you know yourself, Ollie. It's just you just embrace it, don't you? You just embrace it.
Mm. So with this app that's tracking it, do you know how many games you've been to and how many grounds?
I've been to 137 grounds. 137 grounds, as you say, that's over a long period of time, 44. I must have been to about 1,600 games,
Wow.
which is of at least 1,350 on Newcastle games. So that tells you that I follow Newcastle home and we always have done. And as you say, but there's still a sprinkling of other teams in there that I go to. So, as you say, 137. It's still a lot. So yeah, I'm hoping to get to 150 somehow. So yes.
What's the best game you saw live? I sadly didn't have the season ticket for our game against QPR, which my partner does taunt me about, or taunt me because she was there. I sadly was not. But what was the best game that you've seen live?
Well, the day you're on about when they beat QPR, I was at Everton away that day. We were losing 3-1. So I remember that day. You said, what's the best game? I mean, not sure I'd say a Newcastle game, and I could relate to Newcastle. I could probably give you 15 or 20 Newcastle games, but I could also give you 1,000 bad ones as well. So if I talk about memorable ones, which are probably relevant to now, Newcastle-wise, I could say being in the Stand Zero in 2003 and getting a 2-2 draw. Alan Shearer scoring a couple of goals is marvellous from a Newcastle point of view. When we won promotion in 1983, the final game, Kevin Keegan's last game, you could say that was brilliant. So Newcastle-wise, I could give you so many examples. But to take it away from that, you'd say the best game I ever been to, I was one of the lucky ones who went to Germany 1, England 5 in 2001. So you could say from a point of view of a wow, unbelievable experience, you'd have to say Germany 1, England 5. Because again, it was so memorable and it was so England that we were actually getting beat 1-0, you know what I mean? But managed to win 5-1. But so that as an experience wise, it's very hard to beat something like that.
So do you still go? Because I know that with Ashley's strangling the clubs, let's say, I know a lot of fans did start doing boycotting and going. Did you still go?
You know, again, it's I think I'd only ever give Newcastle United when I give football up altogether. I've been watching Newcastle for 44 years. I've been a season ticket holder since 1992, and that was only because my wonderful father, God rest his soul, couldn't handle standing on the terrace anymore. So we got a season ticket in '92, which was just after we got Kevin Keegan. So it's kind of, it's, you know, when I mentioned my dad, it's in you and never miss a game. This is torture. I've never missed it. I haven't seen a game since the beginning of March. I've only missed 10 games in 44 years to start with at home. So I'll go. It's not the best at the minute, I have to say, but I've always gone. The day I give it up, Ollie, is the day when I potentially give football up, isn't it? So
yeah, and that I imagine is probably in the very distant future.
Well, fingers crossed.
So ignoring games, what's the best ground you've been to then?
The best ground, I give it a thought about this. This is quite an interesting point. You've been to so many grounds. If you thought about being different, I would probably say the best ground or the most weirdest ground was Marseille's, the Stade Velodrome. And the reason being is I've been 3 times, but I've been at 3 separate, complete times. So I was there in 1998 for the World Cup, and I went to Brazil against Norway. And it was very open there. It was really intimidating. It was huge. So it was very open, right? So I saw it then and thought, oh, this is very impressive. I went again 6 years later when Newcastle played Marseille in the semi-final of the UEFA Cup. It was the game where Didier Drogba got 2 goals. And I think that kind of sealed his move to Chelsea. But the ground then was very dark, very intimidating, but very, very big. Again, very impressive. I went back again to the same ground in 2016 in the Euros, and I went to see England-Russia. And now all of a sudden the ground was transformed. It had all the roof on. It was kind of the roof they have in the sun. Very, very iconic. But it was just wow, and it was red hot. So if I give you an example, because I've sought 3 different stages, it's memorable because I can relate to it. I've been to many other grounds like the Stade de France, the San Siro, Barcelona's, Atletico Madrid. The old stadium was great, but the Stade Velodrome, because it was over such a long space of time for 3 completely different experiences, three very different, but it was the same stadium. So that in itself, awesome, but very intimidating.
Oh, okay. Where's the furthest you've been?
The furthest I've been for it, I would say the furthest I've been is the US. Yeah, I've seen a game which I've got something to show you. One of them you can probably relate to later on. Is the US, San Jose. I went to a match on San Jose's Earthquakes
Okay.
in 2017 on my honeymoon. So it's just, yeah, I'll show you something with regard to that in a bit. But that's the, if I think off the top of my head, that's probably the furthest.
Okay. So let's jump 2-footed into your kits then. When we were planning this, I asked how many you had, and I think you have the most amount of kits I have interviewed for someone I've interviewed so far.
Yeah.
So how many do you have? Roughly?
The probably best way to get it, I would say probably at the minute it's about 1,000. But when I say about 1,000, they range from replicas to match-worn shirts. So probably within that, I've probably got about 250 Newcastle match-worn shirts, got 300, 400 replicas. Because I collect the replica, I've got every replica they've ever had, going back to the early 70s. It's always been something, tradition. I've always got that. But because I've grown up with football shirts, going back to being a child, I've got lots of replicas of other teams as well. Needless to say, lockdown has made me go berserk again, and I've still carried on buying the ones of today. You know what I mean? And I've also got lots of match ones of other teams as well. But as I mentioned, that I've also had about 400 to 500 other shirts over the years that I sold. Because growing up in the kid in the 70s, you didn't just get the Newcastle shirt; you got loads of other teams. So all I have now is a list showing what I had. So if I go back to the 70s, having Rangers, Leeds, West Ham, England, Wales. So I've always got football shirts, but then I kind of moved them on as I grew up. Where before the big boom of the football shirts, moved all them on to concentrate on my kind of Newcastle collection. So the best bit round is that roughly 1,000 now, but also with another 500 which have gone through me hands over the years as well.
And your kits during lockdown landed you in the paper, right?
Oh, well, yeah. As I say, I've always been in Newcastle collector. And as I say, I've got to know various people over the years who do with football shirts. Got lots of very good friends now over the years with football shirts. A few people have done books, and I've been put in the back as the Newcastle collector. And someone decided they wanted to do an interview for the Evening Chronicle, which was our legendary paper up here. And they did an interview and thought of, and then needless to say, it was front page of the newspaper, which was quite entertaining, with the headline saying I used to have a museum till I got married, which was quite funny. But what it meant to say was I had shirts in a room, and then I used the room because I kind of got married. So yes, made the paper, which was quite nice.
a nice turn to what would have been in the papers around this time of year, or that time of year. But I normally ask, are there any themes running through your collection? But I think I can take a stab in the dark and say that Newcastle plays a big part. But you do also have some other shirts. So are there any other teams, like second teams, foreign teams, that you collect for as well?
There is. I would say that there definitely is a theme. It's always been Newcastle, but as I mentioned over the years, I had quite an interest in a few other teams over the years. But certainly, I've got particular teams that, as you would say, although I didn't class them as my second team years ago, they probably are my second and third teams now abroad. So what I found as part of the groundhopping, being a fan of a team, is very, very enjoyable. And then you have a connection with it. So needless to say, as well as Newcastle, I've got a theme for England shirts. I've got growing up again, always got the England shirt as well. But needless to say, I don't as much now. but I do have a handful of, or probably 20 or 30 so England shirts, including some match ones. Tenerife, because we go to Tenerife 2 or 3 times a year, I've become a massive Tenerife fan. So we go and watch Tenerife about three times a season now, part of a fan club over there. So I've got a number of probably 50, 60 Tenerife shirts now. Hamburger SV, Hamburg, all based on the Kevin Keegan thing. I collect their shirts. So I've got a handful. When I say a handful, probably got 10, 15 of Hamburg shirts. Saint Etienne, the lovely green, Les Verts. I've got quite a number of their shirts, so I collect theirs. Lazio, I've also got a number of Latio shirts, and again, which started when Gaza went to Italy in '92. So I collect their shirts. Also, LA Galaxy, again, I collect their shirts. Got a few connections now in America, so I've got I've got about 20, 30 of LA Galaxy shirts, and I've got like a shirt this season with various bits on there. New York Cosmos, the big team from the 70s that Pele played for. It's always fond of them. Still carry that on, so I collect their shirts. And finally, a team that I'm very interested in is Sint-Truiden. Sint-Truiden's a team in Belgium that kind of the goalkeeper Simon Mignolet, who played for our arch rival Sunderland in Liverpool. He originated from there, and so I've got a story that I'll explain a bit. So they're like the teams I've got really interested in, but I've obviously got lots of shirts of other teams as well. But so yes, it made it more interesting than just following Newcastle. So yeah.
So you said also in messages, and I'm guessing from you saying that you've got every replica shirt from Newcastle, that you have some from your youth still.
Yeah. I mean, the best probably would describe it, Ollie, is I always got the Newcastle shirt for birthday and Christmas as a child, and I'd always kept them. I never ever moved them on. The other shirts I got, as I mentioned, getting Leeds and Rangers, I moved them on when eBay took off at the early 2000s. But the Newcastle shirts, I've always kept them. So I've got every shirt I've ever owned from a Newcastle point of view. So me tiny little 26 to 28 Chesters used to call them back then, I've certainly kept a hold of them. So yes, the little treasures. I do look at them and think, how did I ever get into that? You know what I mean? Or the material. There's none of the material there is now. It's kind of look terrible, but yes, I've kept them without fail.
I did want to ask what's the condition they're like in, because a few people that I've spoke to, and just from what we know from the shirt community, is that as a child, when some of us got kits, it was it never left us. We either wore it all the time, playing football, getting it. I remember my first Dortmund shirt I bought. I think it was like the 2016 shirt. I went and played football with some friends, and it just started lashing it down. And I love a good slide tackle. And I got home and that shirt was not yellow anymore. Amazingly, Vanish did its job, and it looks perfect. But what's the condition of these like?
Well, you say about Dortmund. I mean, I've had a fair few Dortmund shirts. Ironically, I groundhopped at Dortmund a year ago. We went to see Dortmund Leipzig. It was last week, the English Evoker in there. So I've been prone to a fair few Dortmund fluorescent colour shirts from the 90s. But the Newcastle one, the material is just click heaven. I mean, I used to think it's like putting a hard rag on, but I used to wear it to death. I can remember having a white Man United one from the late 70s with the 3 stripes down the side, and I used to play football in that all the time, and the amount of grass stains that were on it were horrendous. But if you think about it, they were very hard, they were very, very tough. So they might have crinkled to death, or they might have been clicked to death, but they were very, very hard wear. And so, yeah, I think not that now. You could probably play football in them once, and they would potentially fall to bits, wouldn't they?
Probably, yeah. So we'll go through some of your kits in a bit more detail. Then. Do you have any off to one side? No, I can see the Newcastle one behind you.
Yes, I kindly brought, when we said should I bring any shirt, I thought I brought 10, because I just thought they've all got little different meanings and they're all quite different. So I've tried to keep away from the Newcastle theme. to give you some kind of diversity or something more kind of up to date with now. But there's some kind of little stories behind them. So yeah, I brought 10. I've got 10 to the right hand side.
Perfect. Let's jump into them then. I will let you grab the first one.
Right. Well, this one. What this one is here is. This is I don't know if you can see it all right there, Ollie.
Yeah, I'm just turning the brightness up on my laptop.
So that one there, that is actually a Latio shirt from 1990, and it's a match worn one. It's number 10. And the reason I kind of brought this is this was just before Gaza signed for them. So this is when they were interested in Gaza. So this was the shirt that we're wearing in 1990, and I had it as a replica at the time. But needless to say, years later, didn't keep it anymore. So when I got the chance to get it as a match one version, it kind of meant so much. So I kind of had to get it. So yes, that's a Latio shirt from 1990.
It's lovely. I can see the design because I've got the 1992 Manchester City away one, the burgundy rubber one. Yeah. I really do like that design.
and this one here, which again is iconic, this is kind of a New York Cosmos one, a match one from the early 80s, and that's made by COLES. So again, it was kind of like they're like a baseball top with the material, but to me that was like a creme de la creme, trying to find something like that. So it's kind of very highly sought of, but you do look at it and think, how did they ever manage to get into these shirts? So yeah, that means a lot to me, that one.
I like how New York Cosmos are a bit like they're almost like a brand.
Yes.
I can walk through Birmingham and just see just random people wearing just a New York Cosmos jacket, and it's like, what? That is a very strange, like, because I mean, I know they still exist, but they're not the team they were. So it's just quite funny to see that their badge is still being worn.
I'm still a fan now. I've got a fair few of the shirts now. To say I'm so I still, but it's the second reboot. But that's the kind of original one from the early 80s when Beckenbauer played and Pele and all the massive stars. We always said they were like the Harlem Globetrotters of the football world. The next one, again, growing up, I was a massive fan of Gary Lineker, still am. And when he went to Grampus 8, which was the team in Japan, which was unheard of, I had to have the shirt. And what this shirt means so much about it is, a friend of mine who moved away and moved to Cardiff, he got me this shirt from Cardiff. We both had it, and it was kind of different. Ironically, we laugh, and probably you talk about. I think you've mentioned a few times on your pod how shirts are built now, very slim fitting. But you could get three of us in there, couldn't you? In the arms, you know what I mean? You look at it.
I was seeing it. It looked like, because how the sleeves fit, it looked like it was a long sleeve. But when you just held up, it's a short sleeve. You could get three arms. Oh my god, it's like the waist.
And that's huge. That's actually an extra large.
Right.
You know what I mean? I bought that again years later and got the same version, but it came from Japan, and it's half the size. But clearly, some are made in Europe and some are made in Japan. So there's different sizes. This one, just to bring it up to date, that's from now. That's fascinating to me. As I say, the Coventry City shirt from last season. When Coventry City brought out a third shirt, which brought homage to the kind of the ska scene, the music scene in Coventry in the late 70s, in the two-tone effect. So I think, from my point of view, that feels like one of the best shirts I've ever seen. I absolutely love that shirt.
No, that was a very nice shirt. I remember that everyone went mad for that shirt.
Yeah. This one, again, which is different, this is an England shirt. Now, this is an England shirt from 2010. And it was when we went all white, it was all them tailored fit shirt. In 2010, they brought the shirt out, which had the various crosses. The St. George's crosses all in different colour. But you could get a special edition version of it where the crosses were all over the shirt. So it was in limited numbers. So I got that, and as I say, it made it quite different. So that's one of me. I think that is my favourite England shirt of all time.
That's very nice. I was thinking this the other day. I don't know if I've ever actually had an official England shirt.
Right.
I just think that's quite funny. I currently do have one of the score draw ones, which I know for some collectors is a bit sacrilege. but none of them have really tickled my fancy in terms of the design, which won't break the bank, of course. Like some of the 90s ones are lovely, but I don't have a liver to sell, so I can't afford them.
I've got a few England 90s ones as well. I mean, that one is probably the last England one I bought, because as you say, when it went to Nike, I kind of fell out of love with it a bit. If I go back to the 70s, 80s, I always got the England shirt, always, but England was Umbro, England was Admiral, so as you say, I know score draw, bring them out, and like they say, I do like the 82 versions they've done of it. But you're right, now the Nike thing, it's kind of, England to me is Umbro. So the next one here, this is one of my favourite shirts of all time, this one. And what this is Tenerife's away shirt from 2016. And why I liked it so much was it's pink and brown. It was totally different. You know, it got Tenerife written at the bottom of the shirt. But although Tenerife played home in white and blue, this colour I just thought was absolutely awesome. You know what I mean? I bought this shirt twice. I like it that much. I bought it in 2 different sizes as well, a pre-lockdown size and a lockdown size. So I just say, absolutely adore that shirt. I mean, that was the away shirt in 2016. The next shirt, which you'll probably, this one here, you'll notice here, this is an LA Galaxy shirt. Now, this is actually an LA Galaxy match-worn shirt from Ashley Cole.
Ah, okay.
And what you'll find is this is the shirt he wore when LA Galaxy were away at San Jose Earthquakes in July 2017. So in July 2017, me and my wife were on honeymoon in America, and we decided to have a tour of America. So we were staying in New York, and then we were heading over to San Fran and Los Angeles. When we got into San Fran, I learned that LA Galaxy were playing that night against San Jose Earthquakes. Now, San Jose is about 100 miles away from San Fran. So you know where I'm going here. I managed to convince her to get on the train with me and go to the game in San Jose. We went to the game, and they lost 3-2 against San Jose Earthquakes. And as Ashley Cole walked off the pitch, he took his shirt off and gave me his shirt. So it was kind of one of them moments where it's nice to be on your honeymoon, but when a fella walks off his pitch, an Englishman in San Jose, I mean, I had my Newcastle shirt on. I used to think, was it because he might have thought I knew Cheryl Cole or something like that? You know what I mean? But he actually gave us his shirt, so it was absolutely soaking wet. But the moral of the story was I was on my honeymoon in the middle of America, watching LA Galaxy, and Ashley Cole walks off the pitch and hands me his shirt. So it was quite a kind of special moment, that.
Not only is that like a memory on a hanger and obviously a match worn one, it's also a testament to persuasion on how you managed to convince your missus to go jump on a train 100 miles away to watch a game.
It's quite surreal, isn't it? And it's not just like you've gone down the road and gone to a game, is it? You know what I mean? It's like how many thousand miles away? And it was just the story. It was just, and you just wouldn't expect him to take his shirt off and give you it after the game. So it's just the last couple of ones I got. Here's one, a Durham City one. And Durham City is my local team, obviously living in Durham, and they play in the Northern League. And what this shirt was in 2016 to help raise funds, they asked you if you'd sponsor a shirt. So I sponsored the number 9 shirt for them. You know what I mean? And at the end of it, you got the shirt.
Oh, okay.
This is the number 9 shirt. So you were doing something for your local community, and as a result, I got the shirt. So it kind of means something to me, that. So as I say, I love that shirt. The next one also, this is just interesting. You know, I mentioned I'm a lover of Sint-Truiden in Belgium. This is their captain's shirt from a couple of seasons ago, Jordan Bagata. You know what I mean? So yeah,
very snazzy shirt. I love shirts that are plastered with sponsors. So
yeah. As I said, that means something. And that's actually his shirt from when they played away the team called Ostend. So as I say, we go over to watch. I go over to watch Sint-Truiden every year now. So needless to say, I kind of go at the minute. So that shirt means something to me also. Mm. And the last one, just to be a bit controversial, was, again, I'm a Newcastle fan, and you go at your black and white stripes and your favourite shirt. I have to say one of my favourite ever Newcastle shirts is this one. and this is in 2009-10 when we got relegated. We're in the championship. We wore, which is called the famous custard cream shirt, and it was ridiculed to start with. It was, ironically, Ajax had something similar at around the same time, but when you look at this, it was this colour. The shorts were the colour as well, and so were the socks. But over the course of that season, we used to wear that, and it's Wayne Routledge's shirt from that season. So over the course of that season, we wore this constantly. So it become quite iconic. So when we actually got promotion by winning at Plymouth, they're wearing the shirt. So as you say, on the outside, look at it and go, oh, it's awful, it's bright yellow. But to me, it meant kind of so much. So it's always stuck. And again, it was our last ever Adidas shirt. And I mean, Adidas, pure class, you know what I mean, with the quality of the shirt and the little touches. So yes, I thought I would share that because it's quite different. So
I mean, I do like custard creams, so that's all good.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting that ridiculed at first, but with the success of that season, it changed people's opinions. I imagine that's what the United third shirt for this season is going to be like. Given that they had some success. I mean, now they're in the Europa League now, I think. Yeah. So if they win the Europa League in that kit, I'm guessing it's going to go down in history. But some people hate it, some people love it.
It's one of them, because when you first saw that, you saw it as the full kit with the shorts, you know, the black and white. Oh, but you're right. It's kind of, it becomes quite different, doesn't it? So yeah, it depends on the success. It's like the City shirt, isn't it? The City shirt this season with the Paisley. Some people might go, you know. I think that's a marvellous top.
It's grown on me. It's great because I hated it at first. I didn't know why, but I think it's probably our best kit this season, to be honest. I'm yet to get any kit from this season for City, but I will. Hopefully, this will be out after Christmas, so fingers crossed I've got one. If not, my birthday's the end of January, so I'll get one then.
Hint, hint, hint.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, anyone who's watching. Yeah. So obviously you've got a lot of kits, match one, this and the other. What are you like for Holy Grails? Do you have what people would consider Holy Grails, or are you after any? Or
there's always a Holy Grail. There's always that missing one. Problem is, years and years ago, they only ever wore a shirt last the whole season. So a Holy Grail to me is when we actually won a competition, which is a long, long time ago, a European competition, which was the old original UEFA Cup, you know, which was before the Europa League. It was called the First Cup in 1969, and I would love to get a shirt from the game, but sadly, it would cost an absolute fortune. So that's the Grail upon Grail. I think it's, and apart from that, an England shirt from the 1970s would probably as much of a Grail. Again, as we know, it would cost an absolute arm and a leg. So, yeah. But every shirt has its price, doesn't it?
Well, exactly, and it's only worth what people are willing to pay for. Yeah. So it swings in roundabouts. For new collectors, I like to chuck this in. Do you have any advice for new collectors? Maybe avoid Newcastle shirts for you.
Yeah, exactly. For new collectors, what would I say? I'd always say, you know, you hear about people buying on eBay and Depop and things like that, diving in and getting stung. It was always play the long game. I mean, I've been to collecting shirts for a lifetime. It takes a long time to build it up. I suppose it depends what's your interest. Are you interested in certain things? You know, you probably mentioned before when people are all looking for the Bruce Banana shirts that people didn't like years ago, I have to say. People would dive in and pay a fortune. It's kind of just keep your eyes open, keep in there. Don't just dive in, play the long game. I'd always say, network, get to know fellow collectors. We've had conversations before. You know, you build good friendships in this world. If you think back to it, it's kind of, you become good friends because you've all got interest, but then bring networks. So, would you say as a result, now I've got networks in different parts. I've got good friends in America, you know, who kind of helped me with the Galaxy. You know, friends who helped me with Hamburg. It's treating people with the respect, isn't it? You end up doing people kind of favors. So it's kind of, I would say it's kind of, you know, kind of build your friendships, play the long game, treat people with respect. I think in the main, if you're when you're collectors, you're kind of halfway there, aren't you? But yeah, from my point of view, I kept saying about, build up your contacts as well. Build up your contacts. So yeah, that's my advice.
And fingers crossed we'll all get to meet each other very soon at Football Kit Con.
Yeah.
remember when that was meant to happen?
March was it March? It was the March, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was March or April time. Yeah.
Yeah. With Edinburgh, I remember. Yes.
Yeah. That Twitter account has been a bit inactive for a while, which
Right.
because what's the point? They can't. While it's all up in the air, they've got nothing to tweet. But I know it's going to be rescheduled, so I'll see everyone there.
Yeah.
But that is everything. Do you have any final notes? Anything you want to say?
No, I'm fine. It's been great, mate. I have a good crack about church. You could talk for days, couldn't you?
Yeah, I really could. That's one of the reasons I'm a waiter. So thank you very much for joining me. If anyone would like to find you on the interwebs, where is the best place to find you?
On Twitter. I'm about there every now and again. My Twitter handle is Gav411Haigh, and I'm also on Instagram at Gavin.Haigh. That's the general places where I'm best to be found. If anyone wants to say hello and have a look at my stuff, yeah, it's fine.
Perfect. I will put all your social media links in the description. There'll be the top few lines. So if anyone wants to go give you a follow or just take a peek at your kits or the lovely front page newspaper picture, then they know where to go find it. But thank you very much for joining me in the very first episode of Kit Room in 2021. Oh, that sounds weird. But thank you very much for joining us. There'll be another episode out next week. Please like, comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube. It really does help. And if you're listening on podcast platforms, then thank you very much. Please subscribe on your platform of choice and you will go straight into your feed. I don't know. I only use the Apple Podcasts. Thank you very much. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Please.